All I felt from the men in the room was judgment. I wasn't sure if it was because I was a woman and men like that can't deal with change, or they just hated me for me, but it resulted to me looking at the ground. No, Clara, you are queen. You can't be disrespected like this from these old farts. Hold your head up high. My wolf shouts in my head. I nod, putting my head up, even making eye contact with a few of them as I went by. Gray finally leads me to the top 2 chairs at the head of the table. We stand there for a second as the doors are closed. You may be seated, Gray says in a powerful voice. Immediately, the men start to take a seat as Gray pulls my seat out. I send him a little smile, taking a seat before he takes his. Beside me, the men begin to take documents out folders they had. Now I see why the meeting is being held here. One guy was the first to speak, looking over at me. They all seem to nod, which makes me start to feel intimidated, but my wolf growls. Yes, your safety is one of our top priorities. I smirk, looking him dead in the eye, showing him I wasn't scared of him or backing down. Let's proceed with the meeting. My mate and I had arrangements that have been pushed back. We would still like to attend them, Gray says, nudging me a little with a smile. I like that side of you, he mind links me, causing me to also smirk. I don't know where I got the confidence to even speak in front of all these guys. We have a few subjects we need to discuss. The most pressing matter is that of the whereabouts of Rupert Bynes due to the recent attack. One of the other men say we're gonna be talking about Rupert. Maybe I'll hear the answers to the questions I've wanted to ask Gray, but didn't. Kind of my own fault, really, right? Unfortunately, his whereabouts are unknown to us at this moment. We are slowly building a case on Mr. Bynes, Gray says, leaning forward, placing his hands on the desk, interlocking his fingers. Slowly, another man questions him. I might be imagining this, but it sounds like these guys rehearse what they're gonna say beforehand. They never talk over one another. It's crazy. There have been many factors contributing into the case being delayed. We cannot interview or question many of the victims as they are mostly all still in hospital getting treated. My advisor has not been able to leave his sick mate who got injured in the accident, Gray explains, but is immediately cut off by another man again with the rehearsed parts. I strongly advise you, sir, to immediately call your advisor back to work immediately. He is no use to you. Sat beside his mate in a hospital room, he says, which immediately makes me give him a look. Josh is doing the right thing by staying with Daisy. That's where he should be, no shadow of a doubt. He requested to return to work, but I ordered he stay with his mate, Gray corrects him, which instantly makes the entire room erupt in annoyed mutters. I guess they didn't rehearse that part. You did what, sir? You have ordered your advisor to stay away at the most critical time in this investigation. The best place for him right now would be away from his mate who actually caused this whole incident to happen, one man says, just as another man injects for a second. We will expand on that fact after, he says, writing a note on the paper in front of him. I whip my head around, looking at Gray for a second, getting quite worried for Daisy. He should be here doing the job you appointed him to do by keeping him away. You are putting the lives of your people at risk by your neglect. But mostly importantly, you're putting your own mate's, the Queen's, life at risk, this man begins to claim, which immediately makes anger slowly start to boil in my body. As you said, you are unaware of Rupert Bynes' whereabouts. For all we know, he'll be a few miles away plotting his next attack. If it was your father sat there, well, he wouldn't be sat there. He would be out hunting this guy, and probably already caught him, he shouts, which makes me jump a little. I take a final glance to Gray. He just looked at the ground. Now they've hit a nerve in me. Now I don't wish to offend you by calling you this, whatever your name is, but I can only assume that you're rather slow, sir. Not physically, but mentally. I join the conversation, making eye contact with the guy. He sends me a confused look, taking a glance to the other men. If you haven't realized, sir, the king's father isn't king anymore, hasn't been for quite a few years. So I don't really understand why you all seem to bring him as often as you do. We are just saying, ma'am, that his father would be dealing with this situation differently to how the king is. One speaks up, which makes me smile. I already knew how to shut this one down. Of course, the king and his father are two very different people who do things dramatically different, which quite frankly, I'm so glad the king isn't like his father, I say, fully sitting forward, staring at all the men. They seem to shift in their seats as I spoke. From the stories I have heard about his father, he was an evil man, and you might not want to hear this, but a terrible king. I say, knowing I was gonna start hitting a nerve in them. His father was an excellent king, while he just lets his workers get weeks off to stay with their mates. His father's staff were always in and ran when he called one, says, trying to defend the king, but only further proved my point. And why do you think all his workers ran? At his beck and call. They were terrified of him. They all knew what evil things his father would do. If they were to disobey him, you claimed the king was putting his people in danger when his father hurt and killed his people. I say as one went to speak, but I held my finger up. I wasn't finished. Now let's not forget the Rhea. Son were having his eating about Rupert. His father went and earned this guy's hoe. Used down killing his mate. Now you're gonna sit there and clay. He was the best key. Gee, this place is evil. Scene he was an ill man that only cared about himself. This is the first meeting I've been in, and it's quite clear, Tome, what the issue is. You were trapped under his father's reign of terror, that you've become brainwashed to his way of thinking. Your judgments of what's right and wrong and what makes a good king are flawed. I might have persuade the king that maybe it's time to start looking for new younger people too. Oh, fill your roles. I smile looking at each of them whose eyes, the wide staring at them, fully shocked. You would have to try and persuade the king to not do that, one says, his voice just the voice of worry. Oh, it's working. I think my ways of persuading the king will be much more effective than yours. I smirk, looking over at Gray, who was sat back in his chair smirking. He sends me a wink before I look back at the men. Okay, as you wish, ma'am. We won't force his advisor to return to work until his mate is fit enough on her own. One man quickly says. The shakiness in his voice was telling that I won. Now into the next item on the list, the guy says, looking up at the rest. Is them for help? Yes, it is about the building case on Miss Daisy Johnson for her involvement on the recent attack. Another says, turning the pages of the stacks of papers in front of them. I take a worried look to Gray, who sits up. What case? He asks, looking at the man. Daisy had nothing to do with the attack. She endangered the Queen and also aided Mr. Bynes in his attack on the castle, he says, which makes my jaw drop once that sentence left his lips. Daisy did not help Rupert at all. She's having to go through major surgeries due to what he did, I say, feeling the need to back Daisy up. Her screams filling my mind once again. She is witnessed having a conversation with Mr. Bynes just before she entered the castle. Then she is seen having a conversation with you, ma'am, trying to lead you out of the safely of the castle where Mr. Bynes was located. With an explosive, he tries to explain, but I shake my head. He forced her to do all that. He strapped an explosive device with liquid silver to her back. She never tried to lure me outside. She was warning me, I exclaim, getting annoyed that they even suggest that. We have evidence that she was luring you outside, ma'am. The guard that was stationed with you was wearing an earpiece for in the event that for whatever reason he couldn't mind link anyone if you were in danger. That earpiece picked up Miss Johnson trying to lead you outside and was more persistent when you refused. He tells me I had to think back but soon remember what she was also doing while saying that. What the earpiece couldn't see while that happened, she was shaking her head. She couldn't openly say what was happening due to what he strapped to her back. Right before the bomb went off, she tried to tell me, but the blast cut her off. I say, trying to through to them that she had no choice. You have no evidence of that happening, ma'am, but the fact of the matter is that she still went into the castle. Whether he forced her or not, she went in with the intent to lure you out, endangering your life. Another man joins this conversation. This was just insane. She had no choice. Are you telling me if you were approached by Rupert, you would just allow him to place that thing on you and you wouldn't go along with what he told you do? I ask, crossing my arms. Anyone would. It would be terrifying. Yes, ma'am, I am saying that it is my obligation as one of your loyal subjects to protect you at all costs. She should have let him explode that device outside, away from you, where it would have caused a scene and you would have been safe, or just alert someone what was happening, and then, ma'am, we wouldn't be having this conversation, as Mr. Bynes would already be in our custody. The man continues, I just sha my head, but he would SNT finish due to Miss Johnson's negligence. She risked your life then and now we still no closer on finding Mr. Bynes. He says I take a quick look to Gray, who eyes were already on me. I take a look to the floor, not one. Ting the men to kak. H on. At what I'm Abu. D to do. Can we fight this? I asked Gray through MindLink. I didn't want these men thinking I didn't know stuff. It is possible, my love, but it will not be easy. Once a case such as this is opened, it cannot be closed until a full completed investigation is conducted. He replies also through MindLink. I mentally sigh, feeling terrible for Daisy. Can we wrap this up? I ask. Having enough with all of this meeting and the men, Gray agrees, sitting up straight. You may all be dismissed, the Queen, and I have other meetings we must attend, he tells the men, who immediately get out their seats and basically run out the room. Once the door was closed, I stand up out my chair, just walking around. How did that meeting turn out like that? How can they say Daisy is at fault when really she's the victim? And how in the heck did I get the courage to talk to those men like that? I am so incredibly proud of you, my love. Gray smiles, pulling me towards him, placing his forehead on mine. The way you held your own over those men. Your queen side made an appearance, he says, answering that last question. I smile, looking into his eyes. What's gonna happen to Daisy? I ask, looking him in the eyes. It seems as I have no evidence that she was trying to tell me other than me saying she did. They had evidence that could find her guilty. We will fight this with the Daisy. I've mind-linked Josh that we need to see both of them to discuss some things. Daisy is being discharged as we speak, so we will meet them in a few hours at their home. He smiles, which makes me nod. At least I can see Daisy and tell her how badly him gonna fight this now. Until then I was promised some persuading. Smirks, pulling me towards the side door. I just smirk, rolling my eyes, following H. It was much later in the day. The sun was just beginning to set, which made the whole sky just beautiful colors of red and orange. We were just about to set off for Josh and Daisy's house. I didn't know how we were going to be able to break the news about what's happening with Daisy. It is totally unjustified and stupid that as royals we can't stop whatever investigation they have on her. Gray told me it was for a number of reasons, but most likely was because we had a personal relationship with them. He explained that in most cases we could put a request in to stop the investigation, but the officials would claim that we're too close to the case and nothing would be done, and it might actually make her look worse. I couldn't help but feel responsible for what happened. Gray keeps saying over and over again that it's not, and of a matter of fact it's his father's, but a part of me knows he was there to harm me, but many others are suffering while I'm just here with a broken arm. I just hope they're able to track him down before he can try anything else. No one else needs to get hurt. Gray was leading me out the back of the castle. He told me we're leaving now, as it'll be much safer, as not many people will be about it. Also will minimize the risk of Rupert finding out I'm not in the walls of the castle. Well, what's left of the castle actually. We make our way down back corridors that I never knew existed. I don't think back escape routes were on Gray's plan of the castle tour I got when I first arrived here, which doesn't feel that long ago, but in a matter of fact it's been nearly 7 months, I guess. I've been busy dealing with each drama that the time has flown by. We make our way down a final corridor with doubles doors at the end there, opened by 2 heavily armed guards who bow their hands. Gray told me they've upped the security. I had no clue it was to this extent. The thing in front of me caused a slight panic to fill my senses. A car. Good evening, Your Majesties. We have gone over multiple options for you to get to your destination. We believe that the safest way would be in this unmarked vehicle. You will have security following you, but just a considerable amount of distance away, the man explains, but I didn't pay attention, my mind just replaying the crash over and over again. This will be the first time I'll be in a car since the accident. What if Rupert finds us and causes another crash? What if it's just a random accident that causes us to crash? What if the car's been sabotaged so we crash? Gray, pulling me to the side of the building, breaks me out at my worried thoughts. I love, none of that is going to happen. I promise the team have done all the necessary checks to the car. The security in front of us will be assessing the surrounding area for any danger ahead. We are going just before nightfall, so Rupert won't find us, he says, trying to reassure me. But I shake my head, my hands beginning to shake. I kept replaying the crash in my mind. My love, listen to me. If somehow one of those circumstances were to occur, which they are not, I will protect you so no harm would come to. All I need you to do, my love, is trust me. I would never put you in any kind of danger, he says, placing his forehead on mine to calm me down, which was actually starting to work. I nod, looking down at the floor, trying to stop my hands from shaking. He smiles, placing a soft kiss on my head before leading me to the parked car. The doors get opened by the man in the suit. With a smile, I look back at Gray, who just sends me a smile, and I nod. I look back to the car, slowly climbing in, my whole body still shook from fear as Gray gets in beside me. He reassures me it's going to be okay while putting on my seatbelt. My hands were shaking that much I don't think I'd be able to clip it in once. I'm fully strapped in. He wraps his arm around me, pulling me closer to him as the car begins to pull out the castle. My heart rate also beginning to rise at the same time. "You are safe, my love, I promise," he whispered down to me, which immediately makes a memory spark in my brain. Kyle and I were sat in the back of a car. Kyle had his arm wrapped tightly around me, holding safely in his arms. It was pitch black, which meant I couldn't see where we were going. I was terrified. In the front seat sat two men. My dad was driving while Cyrus sat beside him. "Tell me again why we've took my kids on this trip," my dad says, looking over at Cyrus, who just sighs, taking a glance in the back at us with a look of disgust. "Well, due to your stupid mistake having those delinquents, I thought we should try and make some good out of a bad situation. But before they can join our little corporation, they need to toughen up. They're a bunch of pansies," he exclaims as I see my father looking at us through the mirror. He shakes his head, looking back to the road. "Kyle maybe, but Clara, she's only a little girl, Cyrus," he says, looking back at my terrified face in the mirror once again. "Oh, you shouldn't say things like that, dude. Just because she's a girl don't mean she can't do stuff. If some woman heard you say that, you get a metal pipe off your head," Cyrus replies, which my dad just rolls in eyes. "Dude, I agree you 100%, but you have to watch what you say around some people. They see anything to have a fight about, and you know me, I pick my battles," he continues while sitting back in his seat. "What's this job we got anyway?" my dad asks, changing the rather awkward subject. This causes Cyrus to sit up in his chair once again. "It's another job for the posh bloke, but this time it's a rather different job. Some people might get hurt maybe," he shrugs, rolling down his window, filling the back of the car with freezing cold air. "No, Cyrus, I told you after the Roberts job that I ain't doing jobs that hurt people. What you made me do to his family still haunts me to this day. I have kids myself now, my dad's," but Cyrus is quick to shut him off. "You mean those two daisies in the back? Them seeing a job like this will help them out. That's why I brought them, and didn't you hear what I said? We might have to hurt some people, May. That just means if something happens, it might be forced upon us. I'm just preparing you for that, Wes," he says, trying to convince my dad not to turn around. I could tell that's something he wanted to do. "We want to get our names out there, don't we? Me, 'cause I want to make the money to live me life, and you for them kids in the back for reasons I will never know. Working with this man will put our names on them. Map, get our names out there. We can't be turning the work he wants us to do down, 'cause that'll do the opposite. And if you think about it, well, be serving the count. Right." He points in my dad's face with that same smile he would do. "Oh, you didn't tell me what we're doing," my dad replies, looking at him for a second. "You with the minor details. This man wasn't giving up his property when he was asked to. We're going there to burn it down. His name's here." "One second," he explains, rummaging through some rubbish for something. "Oh, hear it. The man's name is Rupert Bynes," he says, which is what snaps me out of the memory. I was soon back in the car with Gray. My eyes were just wide from what I just remembered Cyrus saying. Him and my dad were the ones that helped Gray's father that night. And that's the first time I've thought about the incident. I've blocked out a bunch of my childhood memories that I know would just cause the horrible feelings as a child to resurface. It's the first time that I can remember my dad feeling bad and wanting to protect us, well, more me, as it looked as though he didn't mind Kyle being there. Cyrus was always like that growing up. He treated Kyle and I like crap and always got our dad to follow every word he said. Ray, looking down at me with a smile, snaps me out my thoughts. I just send a tiny one back as we pull up to a row of quite big houses. They had steps leading up to each door with black railings. Bricks were a deep red color with huge windows at the front. They looked rather Victorian-era type houses, but also with a modern sense to them. Once the car comes to a stop, one of the front doors of the houses open. Josh walks out looking both ways, checking down the street. Just across the road, a man in a suit stood looking around. He nods to Gray, who opens the door holding his hand out for me. That's the first time I've saw him open his own door. I take his hand, allowing him to help me out the car. He makes me basically run over to the house Josh stood outside of. We race up the stairs until we arrive through the front door, which is immediately closed. That was intense. Josh sighs, looking out of the spy hole of the door. He locks the door, putting both of the chains on, so there was no way it could be opened from the outside. This will have to be a quick visit. We cannot risk Rupert finding our location, Gray explains, looking down at his watch for a second. This all seemed rather stressful. Josh leads us into the next room, which appeared to be a living room. It was quite large, with green walls, not a color I would pick for a living room, but hey-ho, to each their own. It had a huge fireplace with an even bigger mirror hanging on the wall above that doesn't look cheap. It had 2 brown sofas either side of the room, one by the huge window facing nothing, while the other faced a TV, also on the wall. In front of the sofas were 2 old-looking coffee tables. I think they've stuck to the old Victorian setting. The only semi-modern item was the TV, but I guess this is what they want, and it's their home. So knock yourselves out is what I say. Okay, I should probably get out of my critiquing thoughts and acknowledge the people. Sitting on one of the brown sofas was a girl. At first glance, it didn't register to me that it was Daisy. She had major bandages covering her arms, chest, and neck area. From here I could see the little burn marks on her face that didn't look that bad, probably why they are not bandaged up like the rest of her body. I send her a smile, which she soon returns. I turn to look at Gray, who was in the middle of a conversation with Josh. This gave me an indication to go talk to Daisy. I slowly make my way over to her, where she sits up, telling me to sit beside her. Stupid question, but how are you feeling? I ask with a smile. She shakes her head, also smiling. It's not a stupid question. It's really the only question that someone could ask me right now. She smiles but looks down herself. If you asked me that question a few weeks ago if I was feeling like this, I would probably have said how awful I feel. But from the pain I've felt this last week, I'm feeling so great, especially now my skin is on the right track to heal. She smiles, which also makes me smile. It's great to see she's still in high spirits. I was meaning to visit you in the hospital, but the timelines never added up. I was either having my arm checked or you were in surgery. I smile, looking down at my arm in a cast, which I hopefully get off in a few days, blessed with the werewolf healing gene. I'm sorry, Clara. She sighs, looking at me with sad eyes. I send her a questioning look, not understanding what she had to be sorry for. I put you in danger. I should have led Rupert out the castle and away from you, she says, on the verge of tears. That's the argument the men back in the meeting had. I take a look to Gray, who makes direct eye contact with me. I guess he heard that part of the conversation. This wasn't your fault, Daisy. You didn't have any other choice. We all know what that man would have done if you refused to go along with his plan, I say, trying to reassure her as Josh spoke up from across the room. Daisy, I told you Clara doesn't blame you for what happened, he says, looking over at Daisy. She doesn't look up from the ground though. Clara does not blame you, neither do I, but many others do, Gray says, joining the conversation. It was now my turn to look to the ground, knowing where this conversation was now going. As you know, Clara and I attended a meeting with some of the officials today. As expected, the attack on the castle was the main topic of discussion, Gray explains. While walking over to me, he takes me by the arm, pulling me up to stand beside him and away from Josh for some reason. Trust me, my love, you will be safer beside me, he tells me through mind link. This just causes me to start to wonder what's about to happen. The officials brought Daisy up. They are claiming that she was an accomplice on the attack and have launched an official investigation into her. He explains, which immediately makes a growl ripple through the house. Daisy starts to cry on the sofa on hearing the news. Gray wraps his arm around my shoulders, preventing me from giving her a hug, which I so wanted to do right now. Under what grounds, Josh asks in a rather dark tone. I take a look over to him, where his eyes had gone a few shades darker. With his fist clenched, it appears his wolf is attempting to surface, probably why Gray wanted me to stand here. You are correct, my love. His wolf is most likely going to surface, Gray informs me through MindLink. Well, I definitely don't want to be near him when he does. They claim they have got evidence which incriminates Daisy. I am not going to lead you, Josh, as we are friends with the evidence they have. If you do not make a strong case against them, Daisy is looking at a lengthy prison sentence. Gray starts to explain but is cut off. Something flying at the mirror above the fireplace causes the whole thing to shatter with a deafening smash. Joe's H.S. Wolf has took the stage, Gray immediately puts his body in front of mine in case any glass were to come our way. I didn't even flinch as it's a sound I was used to growing up. One of Cyrus's favorite things to do was smash stuff in front of Kyle and I. He claimed it was character building. This is why I need you to allow me to visit that man, my love. I will teach him some character building. Gray tells me through MindLink, I'm glad he's finding the time to hear my thoughts through this chaos. Josh didn't seem like he was finished. He takes the coffee tables, and throws it at the wall. The coffee table didn't break, but the wall definitely did. It seems as the Victorians knew how to build strong furniture. Okay, not the time. Bits of dry wall start falling out the hole in the wall. I take a glance to Daisy, who just looked distraught. Gray, you need to stop him, I whisper to Gray. He walks me over to sit beside Daisy before reaching Josh, who is still trying to smash more stuff. Proceeds to try and stop him, but Josh doesn't listen. He continues to growl and throw things around the room, causing havoc. I know Josh is Gray's friend, which means he won't want to go full king mode, but this dude is taking it too far. I get off the seat to stand facing them. Ready to turn that queen mode on, my wolf asks me. I smirk immediately, feeling more power running through my veins. Stop, I shout in a tone I've used once before. This immediately makes him drop what he was holding and proceed to bow his head in my direction while Gray looks over at me with a proud smile on his lips. You get that? You're angry and you have the right to be angry, but taking it out on your house isn't gonna make this problem go away. Use that anger you feel as motivation to fight this. I continue dialing back on the queen voice for a second. Me and Gray are gonna help support you through this whole situation. I don't know if I'm allowed, but I will find a way to Indeed, Daisy, as best as I can, as hard as it's going to be sometime, is you need to stay calm and collected. Oh, or you'll just be givey. NG then people what they want, I say, pointing off mainly to a wall. But in the grand scheme of things, I was pointing to the stupid men in themating. You will have Clara and his full support, but you are the one that must support Daisy, not act in this manner. We will get this overturned if we stay composed, Gray states, which causes Josh to look up and over at Daisy. She was still in bits, sat on the sofa. He runs to her side, scooping her in his arms, holding her tightly, while Gray comes to my side, pulling me closer to him. You did good, my love. I love the voice, by the way, he whispers with wink. I roll my eyes, looking back at Daisy and Josh. We have one hell of a fight ahead of. After a few minutes of tears and reassuring Daisy, she excuses herself before making her way upstairs to have a rest. Josh just paces the now destroyed living room. His hands were on his hips, his body just tensing. I stood beside Gray, whose arm was just around my shoulders. I think he was preparing for Josh Wolf to surface as it previously did. Daisy doesn't deserve this. She doesn't have a mean or vindictive bone in her body. Josh sighs, continuing to do laps of the living room. Well, at least he's getting his steps in. We know she doesn't. That's why we just need to make those people see what person she really is. Then they'll know she's not capable of doing what they're accusing her of. I say, which makes him look over at me with a smile. I'll vouch for her if I can. Clara is right. The officials claim they are building a case on Daisy, so we must also build a case on what a great individual she is. Gray adds from beside me. Josh immediately nods, looking around the room. We can start right now. Well, sit and start making lists, writing stories about what incredible things she's done, and think of a game plan, he frantically says, running out to get a notebooks and evidence as he shouted while he went. This left Gray and I alone in the destroyed living room. Maybe I can get some people to come and help fix it up. Josh didn't mean to turn crazy like that and hell be too busy making Daisy's defense case. That is a lovely thought, my love. Josh and Daisy would really appreciate that kind gesture. Gray smiles after hearing my thoughts, my love. It is now dark and I know Josh, he will want to spend hours working on this project, which will increase the risk of Rupert finding you here if it is. Okay, I would like you to return to the castle while I help Josh. Would that be okay? He asks while taking a piece of air out my face. I'm not gonna lie, I am beginning to get rather tired. That meeting really drained me. And it is settled, you will return to the castle to get some rest. Gray smiles as his face goes black. This, as you already know, meant he was mind-linking someone. A few seconds pass before he returns smiling once again. He tells me the guards and the car are waiting outside to take me home. I wave goodbye to a busy Josh who was now sat at the kitchen table, which was filled with papers and photos. We wait near the front door where he just places a soft kiss on my lips. Pulling away, he places his hands on my cheeks, rubbing his thumb across one with a smile. "You will be okay, my love. Remember, I am only a mind link away," he smiles, placing his forehead on mine just as his face once again goes blank. Once he returns, he places a final kiss on my head before opening the door. Cold air fills the hallway as we begin to quickly walk down the steps. The door is opened where Gray helps me to climb in beside closing it. He looks through the window at me, smiling, placing his hand on the glass. I smile, planing mine against his as the car begins to pull away. No time we were driving away from the house, and Gray, I look behind to see him stood outside with his hands in pockets watching the cars. I turn back around to face the front. Just a second, memory starts to fill my head. We were still sat in the back of the car, but it was no longer moving. My dad and Cyrus get out the car as I spot the outline of a man walking towards us. It was somehow darker than it was when we left, which meant I basically couldn't see what was in front of my hand. Back to Guy, who I still could not make out who it was. As soon as he came to a stop near the car, my dad and Cyrus stood up straight, as though they were in the army or something. "We have everything ready in the boot of the car, sir," Cyrus says, still stood up straight. "This is the most respectable I've ever saw him." "Excellent. The sooner this building comes down, the sooner this guy will learn I am not one to be messed with," the man says in a powerful voice. He turns his head, taking a look in the car window where Kyle and I sat. This was when I realized that's Gray's dad. "Who do those belong to?" he asks, taking a look back at my dad and Cyrus. Cyrus nudges my father slightly, who doesn't move. "His two mistakes, Kyle and Clara. We took them along to try and toughen them up. Hopefully seeing a job like this will do the trick," Cyrus explains for my dad while placing his own hands behind his back. He really did think he was something. "Clara may I see her?" he asks, looking back at me, and Kyle's arms are immediately wrapped around me by Kyle shouting no. My dad also looked as though he didn't like the idea. Cyrus shakes his head, walking over to my side of the door. "No, leave my sister alone." Kyle starts to kick and scream, but he was never any match for Cyrus, who smacks Kyle's arms away and pulls me out the cat into the freezing night. He takes me around the car and past my dad. I look at his face where I could tell just held concern. Wait, he actually cares. We reach Gray's dad, who takes me out of Cyrus' arms and into his. My little self was terrified and just kept looking back at my dad for help. My face is grabbed and pulled back around to face Gray's dad. Rule number 1, Miss Clara, always look into the eyes of someone who is talking to you. It shows them respect, but also it shows that you aren't afraid of them, he tells me, his terrifying eyes looking deep into mine. Thankfully, Gray doesn't have this man's eyes. "You have kids too, right, sir?" Cyrus asks, trying to make conversation with this terrifying man. "That's correct. I have a son who also needs to accompany us on jobs such as this. He is the future king, but he can't even bring himself to see some peasant cry. How pathetic for both of them," he says with a look of disgust in his eyes. Hez is talking about Gray. "It's almost time, sir," my dad says from behind us. Gray's dad doesn't look away from me as he replies, "Go ahead. I will watch Miss Clara and the boy," he tells them, still forcing me to stare into his eyes. My little body was shaking from fear as Cyrus starts pushing my dad away to do whatever they came here to do. "Now, Miss Clara, I know something about you which you do not know yourself, yet you are my son's mate. I can tell from that gleam in your eyes that I saw when you looked at me," he says, which at the time I didn't understand. I was too young to even know what mates were. "Now, as his mate you will be, by his side as his queen, which means you will get say on what happens. Now I hope you hold him accountable if he acts too soft towards people. You need to remind him that he is king. People must bend to his will," he continues, still saying things I didn't understand at the time, "but also you. However, I can already tell what a tough queen you are going to be. Most children would have looked away by now, but you have retained eye contact with me through this entire conversation. Finally, a tough queen," he smiles as I begin to smell smoke leading from where my dad and Cyrus disappeared to. My dad was the first to run over with the expression of relief when he saw me. He stands much closer to where he stood previously. I reckon that was intentional. Cyrus walks over without a care in the world. "Building should be engulfed in flames in a few minutes," he explains to Gray's father, who just nods with a smile. Ellie, Ellie, I hear a man's voice shout from beside us. Immediately a man runs over to the house, attempting to enter but failed. Someone help me, my mate's in there, Ellie. He shouts, still trying to gain access as a woman appears in the window. Rupert, all the exits are blocked. She begins to cry, banging on the window as she went. Rupert runs around the place trying to find something to get her out with. Lesson 2. Miss Clara, always follow through with what you say you are going to do. If somebody tells you they would rather their house burn to the ground, then hand it over. You go and burn down that house, he says, looking down at me as I hear Rupert's voice again. I'm gonna kill you, Preston, he shouts while still trying to gain access into the burning structure which his mate was still trapped inside. With respect, sir, maybe we should help him get his mate out before the whole building comes down with her underneath, Cyrus suggests, actually sounding as though he cared. He will do no such thing. She will just be collateral damage. Gray's dad, who I now know as Preston, sighs, not really caring about the important things now. Miss Clara, I think we should set up a date for you to meet my son Preston, process to explain. Now thinking back makes me want to hit him. I thought you had a daughter that would be the next in line for the throne, Cyrus asks, derailing the conversation from the important topics such as helping that poor girl out the burning building. I did, but she would be next in line for the throne, and we cannot have a queen lead all werewolves alone, so I got rid of her, he plainly says, as though it was a daily topic to have in a conversation. You got rid of her, as in my father says, while starting to take steps towards us just in case this crazy man tries to run with me. Kill, he once again just shrugs, which immediately causes my father to take me out the crazy man's arms but safely into his. With all due respect, sir, she's me daughter, not some girl you're teaching rules to, my father says as I wrap my arms around his neck. I was still shaking from fear at his point. Before anyone could speak, a deafening crash and a scream fill the air, which is soon followed by a blast of intense heat, which my father shields me from. No, Ellie, please, no. Ellie, Rupert cries, falling to his knees, just crying. Laughter begins to fill the air from the crazy man. Preston, you're gonna pay, Preston, Rupert shouts, pointing over at Preston, who was still laughing. I will be waiting. He laughs with his arms wide open as my dad rushes me into the back of the car with Kyle. I swear I'm gonna make you pay, you better watch your mate. I hear Rupert shout in tears towards Preston, who as always didn't seem like he cared at all. I'm afraid you are too late, the slag already went and died, he laughs, which just makes Rupert angrier while still kneeling on the floor crying. Then your son's mate. I will hurt your family for hurting mine, he screams, pointing at Preston, who once again just shrugs. That will not be my problem, he calmly says without a care in the world as Cyrus runs over the car. Annoyed, Wes. What are you doing, he asks. As my dad gets in the front seat, the car soon roars due to life. I'm taking my kids home, I'll be back to pick you up in a bit, my dad shouts to Cyrus, who was gobsmacked at what just happened. In no time we were speeding away from that place too. I'm assuming was home. I'm sorry guys, my dad sighs, looking at us through the mirror. I soon arrived back into the royal car heading home. I just met Gray's parents. Well, one of them at least. Gray had an older sister that his father killed. That man is getting eviler every time I see something about him. No time, I arrive back at the castle through the back way. My door is opened, and I'm helped out by one of the heavily armed guards from before. I thank him. Before quickly making my way upstairs into the bedroom, I pace for a second, just trying to wrap my head around the news I just heard. Should I mind link Gray and ask? Probably not, because he's trying to help Josh and Daisy. He also hasn't told me about his sister, which makes me wonder maybe he doesn't want to think about it. Or maybe he doesn't know. Well, I don't know what to do with the information I've accidentally remembered. I decided to get out of these uncomfortable clothes and into my PJs. I will wait up until Gray comes home so I can ask him about his sister. I sat on the bed waiting for the door to open, but my eyelids begin to close on their own before I drop to sleep.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying the book so far, but I just wanted to let you know that I've just created an Instagram for me books. I don't like to show my face, but I do want to be able to talk to you guys and give you updates on whatever book I'm writing. If you would like to, please go follow my new account, Book Updates. Nothing yet, but I will soon. Thank you, Goo. Why ask for all the love and support on this book? It definitely doesn't go unnoticed.
Clara, Kyle's voice screams from the distance. I hear him frantically running around outside my room, finding something to break through the door. Clara, can you get to the door? Emma shouts, worry clear in her voice, but I couldn't help them open the door. I couldn't move. In what feels like an eternity, the door gets kicked open by Kyle, immediately Hez beside my frail, beaten-up body laying on the floor. I just got back from a meeting with the Alpha. According to some pack members, I was disrespectful to them. The Alpha tried to beat some sense into me. I just lay there staring up at Kyle's worried face over me. It's all gonna be okay, he tells me, but his voice soon starts to muffle. I began to hear a more dominant voice. I love Clara, Clara, the voice spoke immediately, breaking me out of my horrific memory. I opened my eyes to see Gray sitting beside me on the bed. He had a worried expression on his face, just staring at me. I feel sweat making its way down my face. Whoa, that dream was intense. Flashback dream. Okay, I say, feeling my heart still going a million miles per hour. Gray wastes no time wrapping his arms around me, holding me tightly. Those horrible individuals will never get to you again. They will have to get through me, and that is a battle they will not win. He reassures me, pulling me closer to him, but then I remember what I need to talk to him about. Gray, I need to tell you something, I start to say, looking up at his face. He pulls away slightly, but still has his arms wrapped around me. Can it not wait, my love? It is getting quite late, and as you said, you are tired, he asks, but I shake my head, looking down. Now you're here. If I don't tell you, I won't get any sleep, I confess. Pulling away from him, still looking down, he pulls my face up to look at him where he looked rather puzzled. You are starting to worry me, my love, he says, looking at me with the same look. I shake my head, just wanting to say what I needed to, but not finding the words to say it. No, just listen, okay? Well, you know, I've been having a few flashbacks of when I was little from memories. I've blocked out well on the car, right, Esto, and from Josh. I had a few. My dad and Cyrus were the men that helped your dad burn down Rupert's home, killing his mate. I say, looking up at him for the first time since I began to explain. His eyes just go wide as he low. Okay's at me, but that's not all. I was there and met your dad. He was creepy and asked to see me where Cyrus gave me to him, and he forced me to look in his eyes. I ramble on, just wanting to get everything out. I love. Slow down, Gray tries to cut me off, but I shake my head. I feel like I'll explode if I don't get all this information off my chest. He kept banging on about rules and respect, and he knew we were gonna be mates. Had told me I had this gleam in my eye, and how I need to make you become a good king, and how I'll be a tough queen. Then he brings up having a daughter, but due to her being the oldest, she'd be next in line for the throne. So he killed her, I say, fee. Nolly getting everything off my chest. Whoo! I quite literal. You fall into Gray's nay. Edding to take a rest from all that ramble. Gray doesn't speak or even move. His arms remained where they were, as though he was in some kind of state of shock. I look up at him, where I discover his eyes are a shade darker. I sit up, looking at him. How dare that man touch my mate? How dare that man talk to my mate? How dare he even look in her eyes? He growls out, rising to his feet, beginning to pace the bedroom. He goes to pick up a vase that stood on the chest of drawers. I immediately get out of the bed, taking the vase off him and placing it back safely on the chest of drawers. He goes to move, probably to grab something else, but I stop him. I pull him towards me, placing both my hands on the side of his face, staring into his now scary eyes. We are not having a repeat of what happened, and Josh and Daisy's, you need to calm down, I say, rubbing his cheek with my thumb. I place my forehead on his, continuing to say things to calm him. A few minutes go by until his beautiful, kind eyes are back looking in mine. I smile, placing a soft kiss on his nose with a smile. I can tell you had a rough childhood that you've never come to terms with. You've avoided any conversations which involved it, but now I think it's time you talk about it. I tell him where for the first time I saw a different emotion on his face. He slowly nods his head, leading me to sit on the bed beside him. We sit in silence for a few minutes. I could tell he was trying to find the right words to explain what's happened. He clears his throat before beginning to talk. My father killed my older sister Matilda when she was only 5 years old. When my mother first got pregnant with my sister, my father so happy, but that happiness came to halt when they discovered she was a girl. He starts to explain while looking down at his hand. My father wanted his first child to be Essen. He did not want the next in line for the throne to be a woman, so he immediately forced my mother to have another baby. Just 11 months later I arrived. My father was ecstatic when I was born. Finally he had a son, but he still had a problem. I was the second born, which meant I was behind Matilda. He sighs, having to take a break in the S. Tori, I immediately wrap, each overtaking his hand in mine with a smile. For years he attempted to get the laws changed, but no one would pass them. This angered my father to the point of no return. One morning when Matilda was 5 and I was 4, my father burst through the doors claiming he was to take Matilda on a daddy-daughter fun day. My mother tried to make him stay, but he picked my sister up and left. He explains as shaking his head. Perhaps a mile out from the castle is a lake. Our mother would take us there quite frequently for lunch, but my they had a different than what occurred at the lake. We may never know, but at the end of the day, my returned home without Matilda, as though he never even left with her. He shakes his head, his anger starting to boil as he spoke. My mother called many search parties, and after a week they discovered her body floating in the lake. He mutters, a single tear leaving his eye as he spoke. I wrap my arm around his neck, pulling him towards me, where he lays his head on my chest. I'm so sorry you had to go through that, Gray. Your father was a horrible man. I know this won't bring her back, but Matilda is in a better place now, I say, not really knowing what to say to comfort him. Her death is also what led to my mother's death 10 years later. He spoke up, still laying his head on my chest. She was never the same towards him after Matilda's death. Everybody knew he killed her, but asking he couldn't be held accountable. On the 10th anniversary of her passing, my mother vanished, he explains. Sniffing ash went. I hold him tighter, knowing he gets really upset when his mother is Brug. HT up. My father sent many search parties out searching for her, not due to him caring, but he knew my mother had information about him which would ruin him eventually. She was found in an abandoned house a few miles away from the castle. He says as if feels something wet land on my hand. I take a glance down to see tears just running down his face. I take my hand, wiping a few tears away. I accompanied my father to retrieve Harris. He come to a stop outside of the house. My mother was already waiting outside. She immediately walks over, shouting at my father about Matilda and what an evil man he was, and how she is not coming home. My father forces her into the house and stands outside the door and tells her to get her things. She walks in, closing the door behind her. At would be the last time I saw her, he says, trying to keep his crying voice at bay, but I could see through it. Next moment seemed as though time sped up. One moment it was all calm, but in a split second an explosion engulfs the house, sending my father flying back. I was protected in the safety of the car. My mother perished in the house. She caught on fire, he cries, holding me tightly as he wept. I immediately sit back, holding him extra tightly, whispering he was going to be okay and how he is such a strong person for telling me. After an hour, he had stopped crying. We were both laying in bed, his head still resting on my chest. We both sat in silence, taking in the events that just occurred. I had so many questions that I didn't know if I should ask. Was his father injured? Did he ever pay for what happened to either of them? Is his father still alive? My father was injured in the explosion quite badly. That is the reason I took the throne so early at 14 years of age. Even though the public never found out I was king until I jailed my father 6 months later. To this day he has not paid for the pain he caused and the lives she took, but when I get time I continue with my case on him. And he is dead. But no, T dead. He tells me answering my question. How can he be dead and not be dead? The public he is dead, but to me and a select group of people he is locked up in the castle dungeons while we build a case on him, he explains. Wait, that monster's been here all along. No wonder people always talk about him like he's dead while Gray never does. I wonder what people think happened. I went to ask Gray, but as I look down I see him asleep laying on my chest. I guess that's a question for another day. I lay back comfortably and drift to sleep myself, unknowing of the important day which lay ahead, all about